Hello there, and welcome to the Sleep Porch. Tonight, we're turning our attention to a world that is always around us, yet so often overlooked. A world rooted in silence, patience, and quiet brilliance. This is the world of botany, the science of plants, leaves, flowers, and roots, and all their hidden systems that make life on Earth possible. Plants are not as passive as they appear. They shape the very air you breathe, the food you eat, the climates you live within, and the rhythms of entire ecosystems. Beneath their stillness lies constant motion, chemical conversations, subtle strategies, ancient solutions refined over unimaginable stretches of time. As you continue listening, you might start to perceive these elements in a new way, not as passive background details, but as active contributors within a living, breathing planet, shapers of soil, architects of the atmosphere, quiet survivors that have withstood fire, ice, floods, and long darkness, adjusting through methods that are both graceful and unexpected. If these soft, wandering journeys resonate with you, I gently invite you to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others discover this space as well, one sleepy soul at a time. For now, there is nothing else you need to do. Simply rest, let your body loosen, let your breathing slow, and allow your mind to ease as we move together into this remarkable world. Let us begin. Trees preserve climate history within their rings, much like living records. Each time a tree forms a new layer of wood during a growing season, it is also keeping a journal. In years when conditions are supportive, the growth appears broader. In more difficult years, growth becomes tighter, forming a thinner line. Across time, these variations form rings that can be read like a chronological record, revealing past droughts, cold periods, and other changes that influenced growth. Scientists compare ring patterns across many trees to build long climate records that reach back far beyond written history. What makes this so captivating is that the record is physical and local. The tree is not reporting global averages. It is recording what happened right there in its own weather and soil year after year, without missing an entry. A fallen log can become a historical document. A living trunk can be a library. When you look at a cut cross-section with its concentric circles, you are seeing time made visible, stored in wood as a sequence of seasons that once felt like ordinary days. A banana plant is a giant herb, not a tree. Calling it a tree feels natural because it can be tall, broad, and tropical. But what looks like a trunk is mostly a pseudo, a tight tower of overlapping leaf bases wrapped around each other like a living roll of fabric. There is no true woody trunk built from years of thickened growth rings. Instead, the plant grows fast, flowers once, and then that main shoot finishes its life cycle. Meanwhile, new shoots can rise from the underground base, ready to replace it. The banana tree is closer to a massive, persistent herb that keeps renewing itself through these successive stems. Even the banana you eat has its own twist. Many cultivated bananas develop fruit without the usual seed formation, which is why the fruit is soft and seedless in the way people expect. It is a familiar grocery item with a surprisingly unusual body plan, built for speed and repetition rather than wood and permanence. Wheat, rice, and corn reshaped human history more than armies. If you could watch history from far above, you might notice something surprising. Borders and rulers change, but the real turning points often begin in fields. When people learned to reliably grow staple grains, life stopped revolving around constant movement and immediate scarcity. Food could be stored, counted, and planned for, which meant communities could grow larger than what hunting and gathering usually allowed. A grain harvest could feed people through winter, support specialists who were not farmers, and create surpluses worth protecting. That is how taxes, trade, and organized power begin to appear. These crops also shaped where people settled, how rivers were managed, and which landscapes were transformed into farmland. Even cuisine, rituals, and daily schedules began to orbit planting and harvest. Armies can win the season. Staples can reshape centuries. When you hold a bowl of rice or a slice of bread, you are holding the kind of stability that built entire civilizations. Plants invented wood, locking carbon away for millions of years. Wood is one of nature's great inventions, and it changed the planet's carbon story. When plants evolved the ability to build tough, lignin-rich tissues, they gained the power to stand tall and lift leaves toward brighter light. But that same toughness also made plant matter harder to break down. Carbon that had been pulled from the air and built into trunks and branches could remain stored for a very long time, especially when buried in sediments or preserved in low oxygen conditions over deep time. This helped shift how much carbon cycled quickly back into the atmosphere versus how much got locked away in long-term storage. In other words, forests became more than scenery. They became part of Earth's climate machinery, quietly regulating the balance between air and life. Every wooden beam, every fallen log, and every old tree ring is made of carbon that once floated as invisible gas. Wood turns breath into structure, and structure into history. Many medicines began as plant chemicals discovered through careful observation. Long before modern pharmacies, people learned by watching and remembering. They noticed which leaves soothed to fever, which resins eased pain, which barks calmed inflammation, and which roots were too dangerous to touch. Over generations, those observations became traditions, and some of them pointed straight toward real pharmacology. Plants make powerful molecules to defend themselves, communicate, or cope with stress. And our bodies can respond to those same chemicals in dramatic ways. What began as folk knowledge often became the first clue for scientists, guiding them toward compounds that could be purified, tested, and turned into consistent treatments. This is one reason bot and medicine have always been intertwined. A forest or meadow is not only scenery, it is a chemical library full of molecules shaped by evolution and stored in living tissue. The wonder is that humans without microscopes or lab equipment still manage to find many of the useful pages simply by paying attention. Willow bark inspired aspirin, one of the world's most used drugs. Willow trees have long been linked with relief because their bark contains compounds that can reduce pain and fever. People used willow preparations for generations, often without knowing why they worked, only that they sometimes did. Eventually, chemistry helped reveal the connection between willow's natural ingredients and the kinds of effects we now associate with aspirin. The modern drug is a refined version designed to be more consistent and easier to dose than a cup of bark tea. But the origin still matters. It shows how a plant's own defensive chemistry can overlap with human biology in a useful way. It also highlights a pattern that repeats across medicine. Traditional use can point toward a real effect, and then science can test, measure, and improve it. Next time you think of a tiny tablet, imagine the quiet riverbank where willow branches sway. A common tree helped inspire a tool that has eased headaches, reduced inflammation, and changed medical practice worldwide. The rosy periwinkle helped create powerful cancer treatments. Sometimes, a garden flower hides a medical breakthrough. The rosy periwinkle, with its simple, cheerful blooms, produces rare chemicals that can interfere with cell division. For a plant, such compounds can be part of defense, discouraging herbivores or pathogens. For humans, that same ability to disrupt rapid cell growth became enormously important in cancer treatment. Researchers isolated specific molecules from this plant and developed drugs that helped improve outcomes for certain cancers, particularly in children. The story is both hopeful and humbling. A cure is not usually a single miracle. It is a chain of discoveries, testing, refinement, and careful clinical use. Yet, the first link in that chain can be surprisingly ordinary. A plant that many people might pass without a second glance. This is one of Bott's most striking lessons. The boundary between ornamental beauty and serious medicine can be thin. A flower can be both decoration and a doorway into life-saving chemistry. A single tree can drink hundreds of liters on a hot day. It sounds impossible until you picture a tree as a vertical river. Water enters through roots, climbs upward through xylem tubes, and eventually escapes as vapor through tiny pores in the leaves. This process, called transpiration, cools the leaf surface, much like sweat cools skin. On a blazing afternoon, millions of leaf pores can open and close in a coordinated dance, balancing cooling against the risk of dehydration. The pull is powered largely by physics, because as water evaporates from leaves, it tugs a continuous column of water upward from the soil. That means a mature tree can move surprising amounts of water without a pump, without a heart, and without any visible motion at all. Multiply that by a forest, and you begin to see why wooded landscapes can feel cooler, calmer, and more humid than bare ground nearby. The first gardens helped launch cities, writing, and trade. A garden sounds small and peaceful, but early gardens were a radical technology. They turned wild plants into reliable resources by selecting seeds, saving the best, and shaping soil and water to fit human needs. Once food production became predictable, people could stay in one place long enough to build permanent homes, storage structures, and shared rules. Surplus created new questions. Who owns what? Who receives how much? How do we measure it? That is where record-keeping matters, and early forms of writing are closely tied to tracking goods, harvests, and exchange. Gardens also encouraged trade, because different regions could specialize in different crops, swapping what they had for what they lacked. Over time, planted spaces expanded into fields, and fields supported towns, and towns grew into cities with markets, bureaucracy, and long-distance connections. In a very real way, the quiet act of tending plants helped make complex society possible. A garden is not just a place of growth, it is a blueprint for organization. Tea and coffee changed work, culture, and global economies. These drinks are so normal now that it is easy to miss how world-shifting they were. Tea and coffee offered something rare in human history, a widely shared daily ritual that sharpened attention and gathered people together. Coffee houses became places where news, ideas, and business could spread quickly, fueled by a drink that encouraged conversation and wakefulness. Tea became its own social universe, shaping ceremony, hospitality, and identity in different cultures. Both drinks also helped drive vast trade networks with plantations, shipping routes, and fierce competition over supply. Their popularity influenced labor patterns, too, because a warm, stimulating drink fit perfectly into long hours of study and work, especially as cities and industries grew. Behind the comfort of a morning cup is a story of agriculture, global exchange, and cultural transformation. It is bought meeting economics in a mug. A simple leaf or beam helped rewire how societies gather, focus, and move through the day. Ancient herbal texts recorded real drugs long before modern labs. Long before chemistry had glacier and precise measurements, people were still doing careful observation. They watched what plants did to the body, noticed patterns, compared doses, and passed the knowledge on. Herbal traditions gathered these discoveries into texts, some describing treatments that later turned out to contain genuine pharmacological power. What makes this so intriguing is the process hidden beneath the myth. Repeated trial and error across generations could separate what helped from what harmed, even without any knowledge of molecules. Naturally, not every ancient remedy was effective, and some practices were risky. Yet many showed remarkable insight, especially those aimed at reducing pain, calming inflammation, or combating infection. These writings resemble early field journals created by people who viewed the natural world as a living pharmacy. They also serve as a reminder that science does not start with machines, it starts with careful attention. Each time a modern medicine is traced back to a compound found in plants, it reflects that long human tradition of learning from leaves, roots, and bark. Spices propelled exploration, charting routes, and at times even conquest. It almost seems amusing that a small pinch of flavor could send ships sailing across vast oceans. Yet spices were once valued as highly as precious materials. They certainly enhanced taste, but they also helped preserve food and cover unwanted flavors in times before refrigeration. This meant spices were far more than simple luxuries. They were power, health, and status, and they could be traded for fortunes. Demand pushed merchants and nations to search for direct routes to the sources, reshaping maps and motivating risky voyages into unknown waters. As new sea lanes opened, so did new conflicts, because whoever controlled spice routes could control wealth. The story is tangled with commerce, ambition, and violence braided together. Yet it begins with plants, aromatic bark, dried buds, seeds, and roots that evolved for their own reasons became some of the most desired goods on Earth. Bought here is not gentle. It is geopolitical. The scent of cinnamon and clove once carried the force of global change. The potato fueled population booms, then tragedy when blight struck. A potato does not look like a world changer, but it is a remarkable package of calories and nutrients, grown underground where it is partly protected from weather and theft. In parts of Europe, it became a staple that could feed families on small plots of land, supporting rapid population growth. But reliance can become a trap. When a crop dominates the diet, anything that threatens it threatens entire communities. A plant disease called late blight hit potato fields with devastating speed, turning healthy plants into collapse. The result was not just hunger, but a social crisis, made worse by poverty, politics, and limited alternatives. The potato story is a lesson in both resilience and vulnerability. One species can lift millions, and the loss of that one species can break lives apart. It also highlights the importance of crop diversity, because nature does not promise stability. A humble tuber helped reshape demographics and migration, leaving a mark on history far beyond the farm. Rubber from trees made modern transport and industry possible. Before rubber was widely available, many machines and vehicles were far less practical. Natural rubber, tapped as latex from certain tropical trees, could be transformed into a material that grips, seals, and flexes. That flexibility changed everything from waterproofing to belts and hoses, and it became especially vital once tires entered the picture. A wheel wrapped in rubber behaves differently, absorbing shocks and providing traction that bare wood or metal cannot. That meant bicycles, cars, and trucks could travel more reliably over rough roads, and industry could move goods with less friction and wear. But the story is not only engineering. Upper demand created huge economic pressures, plantations, and often brutal labor systems, linking a tree's sap to global human struggle. In Bot, materials matter. Plants do not just feed us, they become our tools. A milky fluid flowing from bark helped build the modern world. Motion, from factories to highways, showing how a single plant resource can ripple into nearly every part of daily life. Cotton changed fashion, labor, and technology on a massive scale. Cotton is a plant that grows fibers around its seeds, and those soft threads became one of humanity's most important materials. Cotton cloth is breathable, comfortable, and easy to dye, which helped it spread through wardrobes across climates and cultures. But the demand for cotton did not stay in the realm of clothing. It drove technological change as spinning and weaving were mechanized, helping power the rise of factories and industrial production. At the same time, cotton's expansion became entangled with exploitation on a vast scale, including enslaved labor and harsh plantation systems in parts of the world. So, cotton carries a complicated legacy, both familiar and heavy. It is a reminder that botany is not separate from society. A plant fiber can reshape economies, accelerate inventions, and also magnify injustice when profit becomes the only goal. When you touch a cotton shirt, you are touching not just softness, but a long chain of biology, industry, and human history woven together. Paper comes from plants, and so did much of early knowledge. Before digital storage and even before modern printing, paper was the quiet technology that let ideas travel. Made from plant fibers, it offered a lighter, more flexible surface than stone, clay, or metal. That mattered because knowledge grows when it can be copied, carried, and shared widely. Paper turned letters into portable messages and turned records into archives that could outlive a single person's memory. It made schooling more practical and helped societies keep laws, maps, and stories consistent across distance and time. It also changed what writing could be. A page invites drafts, sketches, revisions, and long trains of thought. The kind of thinking that becomes difficult on heavy, limited materials. In that sense, paper is not just a product. It is a medium that shapes the mind. Botany supplied the fibers, but culture supplied the meaning. When you picture the growth of libraries, science, and literature, remember that behind them is a plant-based sheet, humble and transformative. Early microscopes revealed a hidden world inside plant tissues. Once microscopes arrived, plants stopped being simple green shapes and became intricate architecture. Suddenly, people could see cells, repeating units packed together like tiny rooms, each with its own walls and contents. They could watch pollen grains that looked like sculpted planets. And they could observe the fine patterns of veins and stomata that had been invisible before. This changed botany from surface description to inner mechanics. A leaf was no longer just a leaf. it was a layered system for capturing light, moving water, and exchanging gases with the air. The microscope also revealed that plants and animals share cellular foundations, linking all life through a common structure. In a way, early microscopes gave humans a new sense, a way to look into the craftsmanship of living matter. That shift did more than satisfy curiosity. It opened the door to modern plant science. From how disease spreads through tissues to how growth is organized, the hidden world was always there. The lens simply taught us to notice it. Plants quietly make oxygen in roughly every other breath. That simple truth means your lungs are partnered with green life, even if you live far from a forest. Oxygen is released when plants use light to split water during photosynthesis, and it accumulates in the air as a kind of invisible gift. It is easy to forget that Earth's breathable atmosphere is not a default setting. It is a living achievement maintained day after day by countless leaves, needles, and blades of grass, plus tiny photosynthetic organisms in lakes and seas. In a sense, every park, garden, and roadside tree is part of a planet-sized life support system. The next time you inhale, imagine that breath as the end of a long chain that began in sunlight, moved through a leaf's microscopic machinery, and drifted outward into the sky until it finally found you. Nitrogen-fixing bacteria let legumes make fertilizer from thin air. Most plants are hungry for nitrogen, yet they cannot use the vast ocean of nitrogen gas floating all around them. Legumes found a clever workaround by partnering with bacteria that can do the hard chemistry. In little swellings on the roots called nodules, these microbes convert nitrogen gas into forms the plant can actually build with, like the raw ingredients for proteins and DNA. It is a quiet trade deal. The plant supplies sugars and a safe home, and the bacteria supply usable nitrogen. This is one reason beans, peas, and clover can grow in soils that would leave other plants stunted and pale. It is also why farmers have long used the goom crops to improve fields, letting biology enrich the ground instead of relying only on added fertilizer. When you look at a simple bean plant, you are also looking at a tiny underground factory, turning air into nourishment. Some plants can sense touch and change growth within minutes. To us, a plant seems still, but to a plant, the world is full of physical contact. Wind brushes leaves, rain taps stems, animals bump branches, and neighboring plants press close. Many species respond with thygomorphogenesis, a touch-triggered shift in growth. A lightly stroked stem can become shorter and sturdier, better built to resist bending. Climbing plants take this further. When a tendrin encounters support, it can begin curling quickly, tightening into a living spring that pulls the plant upward. Inside cells, touch can change calcium signals and hormone levels, turning a brief nudge into a developmental decision. It is not feeling like an animal feels, but it is sensing, processing, and responding in a way that clearly improves survival. In the plant world, touch is information, and information shapes form. Flowers evolve to manipulate animal behavior with color, scent, and rewards. A flower is not just pretty, it is a carefully tuned invitation built to recruit an animal into moving pollen. Colors act like signs, and many patterns are designed for insect vision, guiding a visitor toward nectar with runwall-like targets. Scents can travel on the breeze, sometimes sweet, sometimes musky, sometimes faint enough that only a specialist pollinator notices. Rewards seal the deal. Nectar offers quick energy, and pollen itself can be food, meaning some visitors are paid to do the job. The relationship can become so specific that timing, shape, and fragrance match one pollinator's body perfectly. The result is a quiet behavioral experiment that runs every day in fields and gardens, with plants influencing where animals land, how long they stay, and which flower they visit next. Pollination is not romance, it is strategy, and it helped flowering plants spread across the planet. Seeds can stay asleep for centuries, then sprout like nothing happened. A seed is a tiny time capsule built for waiting. Inside, an embryo rests, with a packed lunch of stored energy, wrapped in protective coats that resist drying, cold, and many forms of damage. Some seeds enter deep dormancy, refusing to grow until conditions are right, even if water is available. Others respond to very specific cues, like a winter chill, a burst of heat from fire, or a change in light when soil is disturbed. That selectiveness is a survival superpower. It allows a plant to gamble across time, keeping some offspring in reserve while others try their luck immediately. When the trigger finally arrives, enzymes wake, metabolism begins, and the seed shifts from stillness to action with stunning speed. It is one of botany's most hopeful tricks. Life can pause, endure, and then continue as if time itself had been holding its breath. Roots trade signals and nutrients through vast underground fungal partnerships. Beneath the soil, roots often join forces with fungi in alliances called mycorrhizae. The fungus wraps around or threads into root tissues, extending far beyond the reach of the plant's own root hairs. In return for sugars made in leaves, the fungal network gathers hard-to-find nutrients, like phosphorus, and delivers them efficiently back to the plant. This partnership can reshape whole ecosystems by helping seedlings establish, boosting drought tolerance, and improving access to patchy resources. It also creates a shared underground neighborhood where chemical signals can move, carrying information about stress, damage, or changing conditions. The remarkable part is that the fungus is not simply a servant. It is a negotiator. It can allocate nutrients toward partners that pay well in sugar and reduce support to those that do not. What looks like silent dirt is actually a living marketplace, woven through with threads that connect the green world into something larger than any single plant. Plants build poisons and medicines using the same basic chemical tools. Plants cannot run from danger, so they defend themselves by becoming chemistry. Using sunlight and simple building blocks, they assemble an astonishing range of molecules that can repel, confuse, or harm attackers. Sometimes those molecules taste bitter, sometimes they numb, sometimes they interfere with digestion, and sometimes they disrupt the nervous systems of insects. The twist is that the same chemical creativity can benefit humans. Many famous medicines began as plant compounds, discovered because they had powerful effects on bodies. A plant's why is survival, not healing. Yet our biology can be sensitive to the same substances that deter a caterpillar or slower fungus. This is why a leaf, a bark, or a seed can be both remedy and risk, depending on dose and preparation. Botany is full of these double meanings. In every ecosystem, plants are constantly inventing new molecules, and the line between poison and medicine is often thinner than we expect. A leaf can turn sunlight into sugar with astonishing efficiency. A leaf is a solar-powered factory so common we barely notice it. Light energy is captured by chlorophyll and other pigments, then used to power a chain of reactions that ultimately build sugars from carbon dioxide and water. What makes it astonishing is how this happens at ordinary temperatures, with soft tissues using abundant materials and with self-repair built in. Inside the leaf, countless chloroplasts are arranged to catch light without overheating, while internal air spaces help carbon dioxide reach the right cells quickly. The leaf also manages the tricky balance of opening pores for gas exchange without losing too much water, adjusting moment by moment as light and humidity change. Human technology can harvest sunlight too, but a leaf does it while growing, healing, and feeding an entire organism. This is why forests and fields are not just scenery. They are vast chemical engines, quietly turning light into the stored energy that supports nearly every food web on land. Many plants can clone themselves, making entire forests one organism. Cloning in plants is not science fiction. It is a practical way to spread without seeds. Some species send out runners, underground stems, or root sprouts that develop into new trunks and shoots. Over time, what looks like a grove of separate trees can be one genetic individual repeated again and again across the landscape. This can create colonies that share resources, respond together to stress, and persist for very long periods, even if individual stems die back. It also changes how you think about identity in nature. A forest can be one organism wearing many bodies, quietly expanding in rings or patches as space allows. For the plant, cloning is a reliable strategy in a stable habitat because a successful genetic recipe can keep copying itself. For us, it is a reminder that plant life does not always match our assumptions. In Botany, a single individual can have a horizon. Botany reveals that still life is busy, strategic, and alive. Plants do not have muscles, but they do have plans. They track day length to time flowering, adjust leaf angles to manage light, and shift growth toward open space when crowded. They invest in roots when water is scarce and in leaves when light is limiting, constantly budgeting energy like careful accountants. Some change their chemistry after being bitten, making new leaves tougher or less appetizing. Others coordinate with partners, inviting pollinators with signals or teaming with microbes to access nutrients locked in soil. Even their stillness is an illusion created by our timescale. If you could watch a garden in fast motion, stems would sway, buds would open, and roots would explore like living fingers. Bot trains you to notice this hidden movement and decision-making. It is the science that turns background greenery into a cast of active characters, each solving the daily problem of staying alive without ever taking a step. Cacti can swell like living cantons after a rare desert rain. In the desert, rain is not a season so much as a surprise, and cacti are built to seize it first. Their roots spread wide and shallow, ready to drink from a thin, brief sheet of water before it disappears. Then, the real magic begins inside the stem. Instead of storing water in leafy branches, many cacti store it in thick, pleated tissue that can expand like an accordion. Those ribs you see are not just decoration. They are a flexible design that lets the plant grow in volume without tearing itself apart. A waxy skin slows evaporation, and tiny openings for breathing tend to stay closed during the hottest hours, opening more at night when the air is cooler. What you end up with is a plant that behaves like a carefully engineered reservoir, quietly banking water for weeks or months of bright, ruthless sun. Some orchids deceive insects with false mates rather than sweet nectar. Certain orchids perform something nearly unbelievable. Instead of providing nectar, they present an illusion. A blossom can mimic the shape, texture, and even the scent signals of a specific female insect so precisely that a male attempts to mate with it. In that brief, intense confusion, pollen packets attached to the insect's body prepare to be carried to the next deceptive flower. This is a strategy built on exactness, because it succeeds only when the correct pollinator is misled in the correct way. To human eyes, the flower may appear quietly elegant. To the insect, it can seem like the most urgent invitation imaginable. This form of deception reveals how evolution can craft signals that drive behavior without offering any reward at all. It is not kindness. It is persuasion, and it transforms a quiet meadow into a stage where chemistry, form, and instinct collide in a split second. Venus flytraps count touches before snapping shut to conserve energy. A Venus flytrap grows in nutrient-poor soil, so it cannot afford wasted effort. Closing its trap consumes energy, and opening it again costs even more. That is why it does not slam shut at the first hint of contact. Instead, the trigger hairs inside act like a security system. One touch can be a raindrop or drifting debris. Two touches close together are more likely to be a living visitor worth catching. Each touch produces a tiny electrical signal inside the leaf, and the plant effectively uses those signals as a threshold. When the pattern fits, the trap snaps with shocking speed, turning a leaf into a cage. If the prey is small and stops moving, the trap may relax and reopen, choosing not to waste time digesting a meal too tiny to matter. It is a plant, yes, but also a careful gambler, only paying the price when the odds look right. Sunflowers track the sun by day, then reset at night. A young sunflower behaves like a slow compass for light. Across the day, its head turns from east toward west, following the sun's path, and in doing so, it positions its leaves to capture more energy for growth. But the most surprising part happens when the light is gone. During the night, the plant gradually swings back toward the east, preparing to face dawn again. This is not just passive drooping. It is guided by internal timing and uneven growth on different sides of the stem, like a gentle tug-of-war in plant tissue. As the sunflower matures and the head becomes heavy with seeds, the daily tracking often slows and stops. Many settle into facing east, a position that can warm the flower earlier in the morning. The whole performance is a reminder that a plant can have a daily routine, an expectation of tomorrow, written into its biology. Mangroves filter salt and build land where there was sea. Mangroves live in a place that seems designed to defeat plants, where tides flood the roots with salty water and oxygen can be scarce in the mud. Their solution is a toolkit of clever compromises. Some mangroves block much of the salt at the root surface, letting in water while keeping salt levels manageable. Others take salt in and then push it out through leaves where it can dry and be washed away. Above the mud, they grow tangled root structures that hold them steady and also trap drifting sediment. Over time, those trapped grains accumulate, and what was once open water can become firmer ground. A mangrove shoreline can act like a living breakwater, softening waves and helping protect coasts from erosion. In this way, mangroves do not just survive the sea's edge, they reshape it, turning shifting tides into a place where more life can take hold. Seagrasses are flowering plants that returned to the ocean long ago. Seagrasses look like seaweed at a glance, but they belong to a very different story. They are flowering plants that once lived on land and then moved back into the ocean, adapting to a life fully underwater. That meant solving problems most plants never face. They must exchange gases while submerged, withstand currents, and reproduce in a medium that can carry pollen away in strange drifting paths. Many spread by creeping stems that anchor into sand, creating underwater meadows that are nurseries for fish and shelter for countless small creatures. Their leaves slow the water, helping particles settle and making the seafloor more stable. They also store large amounts of carbon in the sediments beneath them, quietly locking it away over long periods. When you picture a seagrass bed, you are looking at a rare kind of plant success story, one that reversed direction in the great migration of life and made the sea its home again. Some seeds hitch rides using hooks, wings, or sticky gel. A seed's first challenge is not growing, but leaving home. Many plants solve this by turning seeds into tiny travelers. Some wear hooks and barbs that grab onto fur or fabric, riding an animal for kilometers before falling off. Others carry papery wings that spin or glide, using wind to search for open ground. Then there are seeds that use stickiness, coating themselves in a gel that clings to feathers, feet, or muddy hooves. Each method is a different answer to the same question. How do you avoid competing with your own parent plant? Dispersal spreads risk. It sends offspring into new patches of light, new soil, new chances. It also turns animals into unwitting partners, moving plant genes across landscapes as they go about their own lives. Next time you pull a burr from your sock, you are seeing a travel strategy in action. A plant's quiet way of turning motion into opportunity. Dandelions launch parachute seeds that ride tiny whirlwinds. A dandelion seed is a masterpiece of lightness. Each one carries a tuft of fine hairs that forms a parachute, keeping the seed aloft long enough to catch the smallest gust. But the flight is not just random drifting. The tuft can create a stable little bubble of air above it, a kind of tiny aerodynamic trick that slows the fall and helps the seed hover. That hovering makes it more likely to ride rising warm air and swirling eddies that lift it higher than you would expect. This is why a breath from a child can send seeds into a gentle storm, and why a roadside patch can suddenly appear in a faraway lawn. The plant does not need strength to spread. It needs clever design and a willingness to let the wind do the work. That floating moment when white spheres break into hundreds of dancers is dispersal made visible. Pine cones open and close like humidity-powered machines. A pine cone can act like a natural sensor, responding to moisture without nerves, muscles, or any moving parts in the animal sense. When the air is dry, its scales tend to open, making it easier for seeds to slip out and catch the wind. When the air is damp, the scales close, protecting seeds from being released into conditions where they might fail. The movement happens because different layers of the cone scales absorb and release water at different rates. As those layers swell or shrink, they bend and the whole cone shifts shape like a slow hinge. It is a quiet machine, built from plant tissue, powered by humidity itself. You can sometimes watch the change happen near a heater or during a rainy day, as if the cone is breathing with the weather. The genius is that the cone does not need to predict the future. It simply obeys the present, opening when flight is safer, closing when the world is too wet for a good beginning. Aspen groves can share one root system across an entire hillside. What looks like a crowd of separate trees can be a single living individual repeated. In many aspen stands, the trunks you see are shoots rising from one connected group network. Each stem has its own leaves and bark, but underground they are linked, sharing water, stored sugars, and chemical signals. This changes the meaning of survival. If one trunk is damaged by storms, insects, or cold, the organism can send up new stems from safer spots, as if it is relocating without ever walking. In autumn, those famous gold leaves can ripple across a slope in near unison. Because the whole colony is genetically the same, responding to season with shared timing. You might stand in a quiet grove and think you were surrounded by many lives. Botany invites you to imagine something stranger. One organism spread out like a living city, wearing thousands of faces. Redwood forests can capture fog, turning mist into drinkable water. Along foggy coasts, redwoods do not just endure the air's dampness, they harvest it. When ocean fog drifts inland, tiny droplets cling to needles and branches, collecting until they drip downward like a gentle, slow rain. This fog drip can moisten the forest floor, even when summer rains are rare, feeding ferns, mosses, and thirsty roots below. The canopy becomes a net, combing water from the sky without thunder or storms. Some of that moisture can also be absorbed directly by leaves, giving the trees another pathway to hydrate when soil is dry. The effect is that a redwood forest can create its own quiet supply line, pulling water from a moving cloud and delivering it to the ground in patient drops. Step beneath those towering trunks on a foggy morning, and you may feel it. A soft, cool dampness that seems to come from nowhere. It is the forest drinking the air. Bark is a living shield, not just dead wood. It is tempting to think of bark as a tough, lifeless coat, but much of it is active tissue doing constant work. Outer layers can be dead and protective, but beneath them are living cells that store energy, move sugars, and help control how the tree responds to damage. Bark can insulate against heat and cold, discourage hungry animals, and slow invading microbes. Its texture and chemistry often reflect a tree's lifestyle. Some species grow thick, corky layers that resist fire. Others produce bitter compounds that make a mouthful unpleasant. Even the pattern of cracks and plates can matter, helping the trunk expand as it grows. When bark is injured, the tree does not simply heal like skin. It responds with its own strategy, shifting resources, sealing, and defending. So the next time you touch a trunk, consider what your fingers rest on. Not just armor, but a boundary where the tree negotiates with the world every day. Trees conceal wounds by walling off damage inside. A tree cannot stitch torn tissue back together the way animals do. Instead, it isolates trouble. When a branch breaks or a trunk is cut, the tree forms chemical and structural barriers around the injured area, limiting how far rot and fungi can spread. Think of it as building internal walls, turning the damaged zone into a quarantined room. New wood can grow around the wound over time, but the original injured tissue often remains inside, sealed away like a scar hidden under a smooth surface. This is why old trees can look healthy while holding hollow spaces within the damage contained, rather than erased. It is a different philosophy of survival. Do not repair the past, protect the future. That approach lets a long-lived organism keep standing through storms, lightning strikes, and decades of small injuries. A tree's body is a history book, and its walls are how it keeps the story from turning into an ending. Some plants remember drought and respond faster the next time. A dry spell can leave a lasting imprint in a plant's physiology. After surviving drought, some species adjust in ways that help them cope if water disappears again. They may prime stress response genes so they switch on more quickly later. Or they may alter how their pores behave, tightening water loss sooner when conditions turn harsh. Roots can also shift their growth priorities, exploring deeper layers or becoming more efficient at extracting moisture from thin films in soil. This kind of memory is not a thought or a feeling. It is a change in readiness, like keeping supplies packed by the door after a difficult evacuation. The plant has learned in the only way it can that the environment is not always generous. The payoff can be real. A quicker response can mean less damage, steadier growth, and a better chance of flowering or setting seed even in a tough year. Botany shows that experience can live in tissue, quietly shaping tomorrow's resilience. Leaves can change shape to handle wind, heat, or shade. Leaves are built for light, but the world does not offer light gently. Wind can tear, heat can scorch, and shade can starve. Many plants respond by changing their leaf design depending on conditions. In windy places, narrower or more divided leaves can reduce drag, letting air slip through rather than pushing hard against a broad surface. In intense sun, some leaves become smaller, thicker, or coated in pale hairs that reflect light and slow water loss. In shade, leaves often broaden, stretching their surface area to capture more of the scattered light that filters through a canopy. Sometimes, the same species produces noticeably different leaves in different parts of the same plant, shaped by microclimates only meters apart. This is not indecision. It is flexibility, a way of tuning the body to the local world. A leaf is not just a green panel. It is a solution, a compromise between grabbing energy and avoiding damage, redesigned again and again in response to the air it lives in. Many roots grow toward water sounds, not just wet soil. It seems almost like a fairy tale. Yet some experiments suggest roots can respond to vibrations linked with moving water. In nature, water is rarely still. It trickles through gravel, rushes through tiny channels, and seeps with faint motion, but can create subtle vibrations. A root tip is packed with sensors for pressure, chemistry, and direction. And it may use multiple cues at once to make the best guess about where water will be next. In very dry ground, where moisture gradients are weak, following the faint signature of movement could be an advantage, guiding growth toward a more reliable source. It is important to hold this idea gently, because researchers are still exploring how consistent and widespread this response is across species. But even the possibility is thrilling. It suggests that what we call listening might have a plant version, not made of ears, but of living tissue tuned to the physics of the underground world. In Bot, the soil is not silent. It is full of signals. A vine can climb by sensing support and spiraling around it. A climbing vine is a master of opportunism. Instead of spending energy building a thick trunk, it uses the strength of other structures and invests in reaching light fast. The secret is touch-sensitive growth. When a tendril or a young stem brushes against a branch, wire, or trunk, growth begins to shift. Cells on one side elongate differently than the other, causing the vine to curve and wrap. Over time, that wrap can tighten, turning a gentle coil into a firm grip. Some tendrils even form spring-like shapes that pull the plant closer to its support, reducing strain in wind. This is a mechanical partnership. The vine offers leaves and flowers to the sunlit space above, while the support provides elevation. In dense habitats, climbing can be the difference between dim survival near the ground and a thriving life in the bright canopy. Watching a vine climb is watching strategy in motion, slow enough to miss in a moment, but undeniable across days. Plants can root growth when grazed, rebuilding from hidden buds.
When an animal bites off a stem or tears away leaves, the plant's future might seem ruined. Yet, many species keep backup plans in reserve. Hidden buds can rest at the base of stems, along roots, or near the soil surface, protected from being eaten. When grazing removes the top growth, hormones shift, and those dormant buds can wake, pushing out fresh shoots that replace what was lost. Some grasses keep their growth points low, so a grazing mouth trims leaves without destroying the part that keeps producing new ones. This ability changes the relationship between plants and herbivores. Grazing is not always a complete defeat. In some landscapes, it becomes a pressure that shapes sturdier, more resilient growth habits. The plant is not helpless, it is prepared. It has stored energy, guarded its growth centers, and waited for the moment it must begin again. That restarting ability is a quiet kind of toughness, built for a world where being eaten is a regular event. Some grasses thrive after fire, using heat as a signal. Fire can look like pure destruction, but for many grasslands, it is also renewal. Some grasses are adapted to survive flames because their vital tissues are protected below ground. When fire sweeps through, it clears away dead material and shading plants, opening sunlight to the ground and releasing a pulse of nutrients from ash. In some ecosystems, heat and smoke can even act as cues that conditions are about to become favorable, with open space and reduced competition. Soon after, fresh green shoots can appear, often more tender and nutritious, which can draw grazing animals and shape the next chapter of the landscape. This is why certain prairies and savannas can depend on periodic fire to stay healthy and diverse. The plants are not celebrating flames, but they are adapted to live with them and sometimes to benefit from them. Bot teaches a surprising lesson here. What seems like an ending can be part of a cycle that keeps an ecosystem from closing in on itself. Carnivorous plants live in poor soils by eating insects for nutrients. In some wetlands and sandy bogs, sunlight can be plentiful, but the soil is stingy, especially with nutrients like nitrogen. Carnivorous plants solve that problem with a startling twist. They still make sugars from light, like other plants, but they supplement their diet by capturing animals, most often insects. Sticky sundews trap prey like living flypaper. Snap traps close fast. Pitches lure and drown. Then enzymes and microbes help break the meal down into absorbable nutrients. It is not cruelty. It is survival in an environment where being normal would mean growing slowly and losing the race for light. What makes this so fascinating is the blend of patience and precision. These plants advertise with glistening droplets or sweet scents, then wait, sometimes for days, for the right visitor to make one mistake. In nutrient-poor habitats, a single insect can be the difference between struggling and thriving. Pitcher plants can hold many ponds with whole food webs inside. Some pitcher plants are more than traps. They are tiny ecosystems. Rainwater collects inside the pitcher along with leaf litter, pollen, and the unlucky insects that slide in and cannot climb back out. Over time, a small community can develop in that liquid. Larvae, mites, and microbes may feed on the decaying bodies, each taking a role in breaking down the nutrient trick soup. In some places, even small amphibians use pitchers as shelter, turning the plant into a strange, living habitat. The plant benefits because the activity inside helps process nutrients into forms it can absorb. It is like outsourcing digestion to a whole cast of helpers. When you lean close to a pitcher, you are peering into a hidden pond scaled down to fit in a flower-like cup.
Bot often reveals this kind of layering, where one organism becomes a home, and a home becomes a machine that feeds its builder. Some flowers warm themselves to melt snow and lure pollinators. Imagine being a pollinator on a cold, early spring day. The air is sharp, the ground is still patchy with snow, and warmth is rare. Some flowers meet that moment by generating heat. Through intense cellular respiration, they can raise the temperature of their floral tissues above the surrounding air, sometimes enough to help melt snow near the bloom and release scent molecules more effectively. That warmth can also offer a small refuge, a place where an insect can warm up and become active sooner. It is a brilliant timing advantage. Early bloomers face less competition for attention, but they also face harsher conditions. By making their own heat, they can open earlier, smell stronger, and reward pollinators with a cozy landing pad. The flower is not just surviving the cold, it is using cold as an opportunity. When you see a bloom pushing up through late frost, it may be doing more than resisting winter. It may be quietly running its own heater. A fig's fruit is a hidden flower garden turned inside out. A fig looks like a single fruit, but its real story is stranger. What you bite into is a structure that holds many tiny flowers on the inside, tucked away like a private orchard within a skin. Those hidden flowers need pollination, and in many fig species, that job is done by a tiny wasp that slips inside through a small opening. The partnership can be remarkably specific, with certain wasps matching certain figs. Inside, the wasp pollinates while laying eggs in some flowers, and the fig develops its seeds in others. To the outside world, none of this is visible. The fig simply ripens, sweet and soft, while an entire pollination drama has already unfolded within. This design protects the flowers and concentrates scent and signal in a very targeted way. It is also a reminder that bot can hide complexity in plain sight. Sometimes a simple fruit is actually a whole garden folded inward. Certain plants release chemicals that stop nearby seeds from sprouting. Plants compete for light, water, and space, and some of them do not leave that competition to chance. They can release natural chemicals into the soil or leaf litter that reduce germination or slow the growth of neighbors. This is called allelopathy, and it can shape what an entire patch of land becomes. A plant may create a kind of chemical halo around itself, giving its own seedlings an advantage while making it harder for rivals to get started. You can see hints of this in nature when one species forms unusually pure stands, with fewer newcomers taking root beneath it. These chemicals can travel through rain-washed leaves, root exudates, or decaying plant material, and they can influence microbes as well as plants. It is not magic, it is chemical ecology, acquired form of territorial behavior written into soil. The ground is not just dirt, it is a battlefield of molecules, and some plants fight with invisible fences. Plants can taste light color to choose the best growth strategy. To a plant,
Light is not just brightness, it has a flavor, a mix of colors that carries information about the world. Under a dense canopy, light becomes richer in far red wavelengths because leaves absorb much of the red. Many plants detect that shift using specialized pigments called phytochromes. And they respond with a strategy change. A seedling might stretch taller, lengthen stems, and angle leaves differently, trying to escape shade and reach open sun.
In other situations, the same sensory system can help time seasonal events, because day length and twilight quality change across the year. What is remarkable is the decision embedded in this. The plant is not guessing. It is reading a signal and choosing how to spend its limited energy. Should it invest in sturdy growth or gamble on a rapid reach upward? Light color becomes a forecast, a clue about neighbors and seasons. When you walk through a forest and see spindly plants racing toward gaps, you are watching a response to the color of light itself. A forest canopy creates its own climate, cooler and wetter below. Step from open sunlight into a mature forest, and you can feel the shift almost immediately. The canopy filters light, reducing heat at ground level, while leaves release water vapor that raises humidity. Wind is softened by trunks and branches, so air moves differently, slower, and often more gently. The forest floor becomes a buffered world with smaller temperature swings between day and night. That stable microclimate matters. It helps seedlings survive, supports fungi and decomposers, and protects moisture lost in plants that would scorch in open fields. Even the timing of evaporation changes because sunlight arrives in broken patches instead of a constant blaze. In many forests, this creates layers of life with different species adapted to canopy, midstory, and understory conditions, each living in its own version of the weather. It is one of Bott's most surprising lessons. A forest is not just a collection of trees. It is a climate machine, shaping its own atmosphere on a human scale. Some leaves shimmer blue, using structure, not blue pigment. Blue is rare in plant pigments, yet some leaves glow with a blue sheen that looks almost unreal. In many cases, that color is not made by dye-like chemicals at all. It comes from structure. Microscopic layers in the leaf surface can bend and scatter light so that certain wavelengths bounce back more strongly, creating an iridescent or metallic blue effect. It is similar in spirit to the way a soap bubble shows color, or how a peacock feather seems to change as you move. For plants living in deep shade, this shimmering may help manage the little light available, either by directing light into tissues more effectively or by reducing glare and damage. It can also confuse herbivores by making leaves harder to visually interpret. Whatever the exact advantage in each species, the result is unforgettable. A leaf becomes an optical device, not painted blue, but engineered to look blue by the physics of its own surface. Plant scents can warn neighbors to prepare defenses. When a leaf is chewed, the plant is not helplessly silent. Many release airborne chemicals, a kind of botanical alert system. These aromas can draw in predators or parasites of the herbivore, effectively turning the attacker into a moving signal flare. They can also serve as alerts to nearby plants, which may react by strengthening their own defenses before any bite occurs. That readiness can involve making leaves more rigid, altering chemistry to taste less appealing, or generating substances that disrupt digestion in certain insects. What is especially striking is that this signal moves through open air,
meaning an attack on a single plant can raise the alert level of an entire neighborhood. This is not language in a human sense, but it is communication, and it carries real consequences. Along a meadow or forest edge, the air holds layers of information we rarely perceive. Each time you notice the scent of freshly crushed green leaves, you are sensing a piece of that system. A chemical message that effectively says, danger is close.
The earliest forests helped reshape rivers and create richer soils. Before forests became widespread on land, water behaved differently. Without dense root networks to anchor the ground, rainfall could more easily wash soil away, and rivers were freer to shift, erode, and wander with far fewer constraints. As early forests expanded, their root systems began to stabilize banks, slow runoff, and trap sediments. Leaf litter piled up and broke down, feeding soil life and creating richer, darker ground that could hold more water. This changed landscapes from the ground up. Streams could become clearer and more structured. Wetlands could form more readily, and nutrients could cycle through living systems instead of being swept away in every storm. Forests also created shade and cooler microclimates, which further influenced how water moved and evaporated. So, the first great stands of trees did not just appear on land. They engineered land. They turned bare surfaces into textured habitats. And in doing so, they helped build the kind of soils that could support even more life. A forest is a landscape builder with roots as its tools. Long ago, giant club moss trees helped form today's coal deposits. It is hard to imagine club mosses as trees because today their relatives are often small and close to the ground. But in ancient swampy worlds, some grew tall and thick, forming forests of strange, spore-bearing giants. When these plants died, they often fell into waterlogged environments where decay was slow. Layer after layer of plant material could accumulate, gradually becoming peat. Over immense spans of time, heat and pressure transformed that peat into coal, compressing ancient plant carbon into dark seams beneath the earth. That means parts of the coal burned in modern power plants began as sunlight captured by leaves hundreds of millions of years ago. It is a sobering link between botany and industry. Coal is not just a rock. It is fossilized plant life, a stored sunbeam turned into fuel. When you think about the age of energy, remember that some of it was banked by forests that no longer exist, built by plants that look nothing like the ones around us today. Mosses can survive drying out, then revive when rain returns. A moss can look dead when it dries, brittle and faded, as if life has left it completely. But many mosses are masters of pores. They can lose most of their water, slow their metabolism to a crawl, and wait. When moisture returns, they rehydrate and resume activity with a kind of quiet resurrection. This ability is especially useful in places where water comes and goes, like rock faces, tree bark, or thin soils that dry quickly after sun. Mosses do not rely on deep roots to reach stable water supplies, so they evolved a different kind of resilience, the ability to tolerate drying itself. In that state, they can endure harsh conditions that would kill more delicate tissues. Then a simple drizzle, fog, or dew can bring them back to softness and green. It is a reminder that life does not always survive by avoiding stress. Sometimes it survives by becoming compatible with stress, turning drought into a temporary sleep instead of a final end. Lichens are partnerships that can live on bare rock. A lichen is not one organism, but a collaboration. Typically, a fungus provides structure and protection, while a photosynthetic partner, often an alga or cyanobacterium, provides energy by capturing light. Together, they can live where neither could thrive alone, including the surfaces of bare rock. In those harsh places, lichens face intense sun, temperature swings, and very little water. Yet they persist, growing slowly, gripping stone, and beginning the long work of turning rock into soil. Their bodies can trap dust, hold moisture, and even release chemicals that help break down minerals. Over time, this contributes to the first thin layer of life-supporting material, making it easier for other organisms to arrive. In that way, lichens can act like pioneers, stepping into emptiness and making it more habitable. They are also reminders that evolution does not always reward independence. Sometimes the winning strategy is partnership. Two very different lives braided together into a single durable presence on the edge of nothing. Some plants thrive in metal-rich soils that poison most life. In certain places, the ground is loaded with metals like nickel, zinc, or copper at levels that would harm most plants. Yet some species not only survive there, they specialize in it. These plants may limit how much metal enters sensitive tissues, or they may lock metals away in compartments where they cause less damage. Some even store metals in leaves, turning their own bodies into living vaults. This can discourage herbivores, because a mouthful of metal-laced foliage is not appealing. The existence of these plants reveals how adaptable life can be when pressure is strong and competition is low. In metal-rich habitats, fewer rivals can grow. So, a plant that can tolerate the chemistry gains space and light. There is also a practical side to this wonder. Certain metal-tolerant plants have been studied for phytoremediation and even phytomining, using vegetation to help clean or concentrate metals from soils. A hillside that looks barren can hide a botanical survival story written in chemistry. Alpine flowers can bloom at the edge of permanent ice. Near glaciers and high mountain ridges, life faces short summers, fierce winds, and sudden freezes. Yet, alpine flowers still find ways to bloom. Many grow low to the ground in tight cushions that reduce heat loss and shelter delicate parts from wind. Their leaves can be small and tough, and their growth can be slow, storing energy carefully for the brief moment when conditions allow flowering. In these places, timing is everything. A flower may open quickly when snow retreats because pollinators are scarce and the season is short. Some alpine blooms track warm microclimates using south-facing slopes and rock crevices that collect sunlight. The result is a kind of bravery in miniature, bright petals appearing where you would expect only stone and ice. These plants make a powerful point. Survival is not always about dominating a landscape. Sometimes it is about fitting into tiny pockets of opportunity and using every clear day like a gift. On the roof of the world, a flower is a statement that life can persist almost anywhere. Desert annuals wait years for one perfect rain to race through life. Some desert plants live most of their existence as sleeping seeds, scattered across sand like hidden promises. Years can pass with almost no rain, and nothing seems to change. Then the storm arrives, and the desert transforms. Those seeds sense moisture and warmth, and they germinate in a rush, because the winter is brief. In a matter of weeks, they can sprout, bloom, set seed, and die, completing an entire life cycle before the ground dries again. It is a strategy built for uncertainty. Instead of trying to endure drought as a full-grown plant, these species endure it as seeds, protected by tough coats and dormancy cues. When conditions finally align, the plants sprint through life like a time-lapse miracle, painting the desert with sudden color. The true goal is not longevity of the individual. It is the continuation of the lineage through a seed bank, but can now last harsh years. In deserts, patience and speed work together, and the race begins only when the rain fires the starting signal. Salt marsh plants can tolerate sea eater that would kill crops. Seawater is a difficult environment for most plants because salt makes it hard to draw in water and can disrupt internal chemistry. Salt marsh plants, often called halifacts, have evolved ways to live right at that salty edge. Some keep salt out at the roots, while others take it in and then store it safely in older leaves that can later be shed. Some concentrate salt in special tissues or glands, managing it like a waste product that must be contained. At the same time, these plants cope with flooding, shifting sediments, and low oxygen in mud. Their success shapes entire coastlines. Salt marshes can buffer waves, trap sediments, and provide crucial habitat for birds, fish, and countless small creatures. These plants are living evidence that what seems inhospitable can become home with the right adaptations. They also matter to people because understanding salt tolerance is increasingly valuable as soils become saltier in some agricultural regions. A marsh plant is not just surviving salt. It is teaching us how biology negotiates with it. Certain plants survive floods by switching to low oxygen chemistry. Floodwater can suffocate roots because waterlogged soils lose air spaces and oxygen levels drop fast. For many plants, that is a death sentence. But some can switch metabolic modes when oxygen becomes scarce, relying more on anaerobic pathways to keep cells alive. It is not as efficient as normal respiration, but it can buy time until waters recede. Some flood-tolerant plants also develop air channels in their tissues that act like internal snorkels, moving oxygen from above water parts down toward submerged roots. Others form new roots closer to the surface where oxygen is more available. These responses can happen quickly because floods do not offer long planning horizons. What fascinates here is the flexibility. The plant is not one fixed machine. It is a system that can reconfigure when conditions flip in wetlands and river margins. This ability shapes what species can live where, and it explains why some landscapes stay green even when they spend weeks underwater. Flood survival is a chemistry story, an anatomical story, and a timing story, all happening quietly beneath the surface. Plants use hormones to coordinate growth like an internal messaging system. Inside a plant, growth is not random. It is coordinated by chemical messengers that move through tissues and tell cells what to do next. Hormones can signal when to stretch stems, when to branch, when to pause, and when to begin flowering. They help a plant respond to the world in real time. If light comes from one side, hormone gradients can shift so the stem bends toward it. If a root hits a dry patch, signals can travel upward, encouraging the plant to conserve water and adjust growth priorities. Even a single cut or bite can change hormone balance, redirecting resources toward repair or defense. What is fascinating is how much behavior can emerge without a brain. A plant can integrate many inputs: shade, gravity, injury, and season, then produce a coherent response through these traveling chemical instructions. In a sense, hormones allow a plant to have a plan, carried not by thoughts, but by molecules drifting cell to cell. Roots can detect gravity, guiding downward growth without eyes. A root tip knows which way is down, even in complete darkness. It does this using tiny dense particles inside specialized cells that shift position when orientation changes. When a seedling is turned on its side, those particles settle, and the root's growth machinery responds by bending so the tip aims downward again. This ability matters because soil is where water and minerals are found, and a reliable downward direction helps a plant anchor itself and explore efficiently. The astonishing part is how quickly this can happen. The young root can correct its course with the smooth certainty of a compass needle. Meanwhile, the shoot does the opposite, growing upward to reach light. That divided approach is among the very first choices a seedling makes, guided by physics sensed at the cellular level. No eyes, no internal map-only living tissue detecting gravity and translating it into direction. In plants, even falling becomes information. A stomatopore can open and close to manage the balance between water and air. A leaf must absorb carbon dioxide to produce sugars, yet opening to the air risks losing valuable water. The answer is a network of tiny adjustable pores known as stomata. Each pore is bordered by guard cells that expand or contract, opening and closing like careful valves. In bright light, stomata often open, allowing carbon dioxide to enter and support photosynthesis. When the air becomes dry or the plant is under stress, these pores can narrow or shut, limiting water loss. This regulation happens continuously across thousands of openings, forming a living balance between breathing and dehydration. It is a quiet form of vigilance. A leaf is always in conversation with its surroundings, asking how much air it can safely take in today. The next time you see a plant thriving on a hot afternoon, remember that much of its success depends on countless microscopic decisions. Each one a tiny doorway adjusting its width to keep the plant alive. Leaves can shed excess heat by releasing water vapor. On a hot day, a leaf can face the same problem as a body in summer sun. Too much heat can damage delicate machinery inside its cells. One of the leaf's best cooling tools is water. As moisture evaporates from leaf surfaces through stomata, it carries heat away, lowering temperature in a way that resembles sweating. This can keep photosynthesis running smoothly when the sun is intense. But cooling has a cost, because every puff of vapor is water that must be replaced by roots. Plants constantly weigh that trade-off: cool the leaf and risk first, or conserve water and risk overheating. In forests and gardens, the combined effect of many leaves releasing water vapor can even influence local humidity, making shaded areas feel more comfortable. A plant does not only endure heat, it manages heat with physics, turning liquid water into invisible air moisture, and using that phase change as a natural air conditioner. Some plants sleep by folding leaves at night. In the evening, certain plants begin a slow, graceful motion. Leaves fold, droop, or tuck inward, as if the plant is closing itself for the night. This is often called nyctinasty, and it is driven by changes in water pressure within specialized tissues that act like hinges. The movement follows an internal rhythm tied to day and night, not just immediate darkness. Why do it? One idea is that folding reduces heat loss to the night sky, helping delicate tissues stay warmer.
Another is that it may reduce dew accumulation or make leaves less visible to night-feeding herbivores. Whatever the advantage in a given species, the effect is quietly mesmerizing. It reminds you that plant movement is real, even if it is usually too slow to notice. A garden after sunset can be full of these small closures, like many tiny doors being gently shut. If you could watch time speed up, the plants would look almost like they were settling themselves into bed. Flowers time their opening to match specific pollinator schedules. A flower can be exquisitely punctual. Some open in early morning to meet bees at their busiest. Others wait until dusk, releasing scent and unfurling petals when night-flying moths begin to search. This timing is not guesswork.
It is shaped by selection over generations, because a flower that opens when its best pollinator is absent wastes effort. The opening of petals, the release of scent, and the production of nectar can be coordinated like a nightly or daily performance. In some cases, the timing is so consistent that local people have used certain blooms as informal clocks for the pollinator. It creates reliability for the plant. It increases the chance that pollen will be carried to the right partner rather than scattered randomly. It is a quiet example of co-evolution, where two very different lives become intertwined through timekeeping. When you see a flower closed in daylight, it may not be shy. It may be waiting for the right visitor to wake. Many plants synchronize blooming across landscapes for better pollination. There is a strange power in doing something together. When many individuals bloom at the same time, pollinators are drawn into the area in greater numbers, and the odds of pollen reaching another flower of the same species rise dramatically. This synchrony can create brief, spectacular seasons when hillsides turn into mass color and scent. It can also overwhelm herbivores and seed predators. If predators cannot eat everything at once, more seeds survive. In forests, trees sometimes release pollen in coordinated bursts, turning the air into a fine yellow haze that drifts for kilometers. The timing can be given by temperature cues, day length, rainfall patterns, or internal cycles, but the result is the same. A landscape behaves like a single organism for a moment, aligned in reproduction. This is boat on the scale of crowds. A lone plant can struggle to find a match. A synchronized population can transform the whole region into a giant invitation, pulling insects, birds, or wind into a temporary festival of fertilization. A seedling can sense shade and stretch before light disappears. A young plant is in a race, and the prize is sunlight. When neighbors grow close, light changes character. Leaves above absorb much of the red light and let more far red through, creating a signal that warns of crowding. Many seedlings can detect this shift and respond by elongating stems and lifting leaves higher, trying to reach open air before they are fully shaded. This is called a shade avoidance response, and it can happen even before the plant is truly in deep shade. It is prediction by physiology, stretch now or lose later, but it is also a gamble. Taller growth can be weaker and more vulnerable to wind, so the seedling is weighing risks, using light quality as a hint about competition. This is one of the most mind-opening things about plants. They do not wait passively for conditions to crush them. They anticipate. They adjust body shape in advance based on subtle information carried by light itself. Plants repair DNA damage from sunlight with built-in molecular tools. Sunlight is essential for photosynthesis, but it can also harm cells by damaging DNA, especially through ultraviolet exposure. Plants live in that light every day, so they evolved repair systems to keep their genetic instructions intact. When DNA is damaged, specialized enzymes can recognize the problem and correct it, restoring the code before errors accumulate. Some repair processes are even activated by light, using the same environment that causes damage as a cue to fix it. This constant maintenance is one reason plants can survive in open sun for years, even decades, while continuing to grow and reproduce. It is also a reminder that living in sunlight is not simply about capturing energy. It is about protection and repair, running quietly in the background. Every leaf is a high-exposure surface, and every day is a test. Yet plants persist because they carry molecular toolkits that patch their most precious information again and again, keeping the blueprint stable while the world shines down. Cocoa and chocolate come from tropical tree beans. Chocolate begins far from candy wrappers in warm, humid forests where cacao trees grow beneath taller shade. The tree produces colorful pods that cling to the trunk and branches like ornaments. Inside each pod are seeds surrounded by sweet, pale pulp. Those seeds are the beans, and on their own, they do not taste like chocolate yet. The transformation happens after harvest, when the seeds are fermented and dried. Fermentation is where the flavor story starts, as microbes and heat reshape the seed's chemistry and build the deep notes we recognize later. After that, roasting develops aroma, grinding releases cocoa butter, and the result becomes a paste that can be turned into powder, bars, or drinks. What feels like a simple treat is actually the final stage of a long botanical process guided by careful human handling at every step. The next time chocolate melts on your tongue, remember it began as a seed designed to become a tree. Vanilla comes from orchids, and each flower must be carefully pollinated. Vanilla is one of the most familiar flavors in the world, yet it comes from an orchid, a plant family known for intricate relationships with pollinators. The vanilla orchid produces a flower that is beautiful but brief, often open for only a short window. In its native range, specific pollinators can do the job, but in many growing regions, people must step in by hand, flower by flower. This delicate process requires timing and gentle precision because the reproductive parts are separated by a thin barrier that must be lifted so pollen can reach the right place. If pollination succeeds, the plant forms a long green pod that slowly matures over many months. Even then, the scent we call vanilla is not fully present. It develops through curing, where pods are treated and aged, so aromatic compounds form and deepen. That means vanilla is not just a crop. It is a choreography of botany, patience, and skilled touch, repeated thousands of times in a single harvest. Cinnamon is bark peeled and rolled into fragrant quills. Cinnamon's warmth comes from the tree's protective outer layer. Harvesters cut stems, loosen the bark, and peel away thin inner sheets. As those strips dry, they naturally curl into tight rolls, forming the quills you might recognize. The fragrance is part defense, part identity, a set of compounds the plant produces that happen to delight human senses. What makes cinnamon fascinating is that it turns a tree's ordinary structure into a spice, using the plant's own architecture as the final shape. Different species produce different styles, and the craft of peeling and drying affects quality, aroma, and texture. For centuries, cinnamon has carried a sense of luxury because it is both flavorful
and labor-intensive, shaped by careful handling rather than simple grinding. When you smell cinnamon, you're smelling a tree's chemistry concentrated into a thin spiral of bark. It is a reminder that many of our richest flavors come from parts of plants we might otherwise ignore, transformed into something intimate and familiar. Maple syrup begins as sap pulled upward by spring physics. In late winter and early spring, maple trees begin a strange seasonal pulse. As nights freeze and days warm, pressure changes inside the tree help move sap through the wood. The sap is mostly water with dissolved sugars that the tree stored from the previous growing season. When tapped, it flows out in clear drips that look like ordinary water but carry a faint sweetness. Turning that into syrup requires removing much of the water, concentrating the sugars until the liquid becomes amber and fragrant. What makes this story so captivating is that it depends on a precise seasonal rhythm. If it stays too cold, sap does not run. If it warms too much, the chemistry shifts and the season ends. This means maple syrup is a taste of a narrow window in the year, captured in liquid form. Each bottle is the record of a tree responding to temperature swings and internal pressure, offering up stored sunlight from last summer as a spring gift. Olives are fruits, and their oil is plant energy in liquid form. An olive is not a vegetable or a seed, but a fruit built to protect and eventually spread a seed inside. Like many fruits, it stores energy, and in olives, that energy is stored largely as oil. That oil is a form of concentrated plant fuel made from carbon and hydrogen, assembled through photosynthesis and metabolism. When humans press olives, we are extracting that stored energy along with aromatic compounds that vary with variety, climate, and harvest timing. Fresh olives are usually bitter because of natural chemicals that discourage being eaten too early. Processing reduces that bitterness and reveals the flavor people love, from grassy and peppery to smooth and buttery. Olive trees themselves can be longeved, shaped by pruning, drought, and sun, producing fruit season after season. There is something quietly poetic in it. A tree uses light to build a dense golden reserve. We taste it as oil, but it is really sunlight stored and poured. In Bot, food is chemistry with a history, and olive oil is a shining example. Saffron comes from flower stigmas hand-harvested one by one. Saffron is a spice that begins as a delicate purple flower, and the prized part is tiny, thread-like stigmas inside it. Each flower offers only a few of these vivid strands, so gathering enough saffron takes immense patience. Harvesters pick flowers and remove the stigmas by hand, often quickly because freshness and careful handling matter. That is why saffron has long been among the most expensive spices by weight. Its color and aroma come from compounds that are potent even in very small amounts, turning a whole pot of food golden with only a pinch. What makes saffron feel almost magical is the scale mismatch. Something so tiny can transform something so large. It is also a reminder of how much of human food culture relies on careful plant knowledge. The flower is not generous, but it is extraordinary, offering intense pigment and fragrance in a form that demands attention and respect. Saffron is not just flavor. It is labor crystallized into threads. Bamboo can grow astonishingly fast, like a living time-lapse. Bamboo is a grass, but it behaves like an architectural marvel. Instead of slowly thickening like many trees, bamboo sends up new shoots that can rise rapidly under the right conditions. The speed comes from how the shoot is built. Much of its structure is pre-formed in tight segments,
and growth is driven by elongation as cells expand and the shoot unfolds upward. This allows bamboo to race toward light, taking advantage of open space before slower plants catch up. Once mature, bamboo can form strong, hollow canes that are both lightweight and resilient, making it useful for building tools and everyday materials. But the most captivating part is watching a fresh shoot emerge. One day, it is a pointed tip. Soon, it is a tall, jointed tower, as if the plant has pressed fast forward. In a world where plant growth usually feels invisible, bamboo offers something rare: motion you can almost see. Tulips once became so valuable, they sparked an economic frenzy. At one point in history, a flower became a symbol of wealth so powerful that people treated bulbs like treasure. In the Dutch Republic during the 17th century, rare tulip varieties, especially those with dramatic color patterns, became objects of intense speculation. Prices rose rapidly, fueled by social status, scarcity, and the belief that demand would only grow. Deals were made on future deliveries, and the excitement spread beyond gardeners to ordinary people hoping to profit. Eventually, the market collapsed, leaving many with losses and a lasting cautionary tale about bubbles and human psychology. The tulip itself did not change. It simply became the focus of a collective dream about value. What makes this a botanical story is that the frenzy was rooted in living things, in the unpredictability of cultivating rare traits, and in the cultural power of beauty. A delicate spring bloom helped reveal how easily humans can turn desire into a marketplace fever, and how quickly that fever can break. The world's hottest chilies evolved chemical heat to deter predators. The burning sensation from chili peppers is not a flavor meant for us. It is a chemical defense. Capsaicin irritates the pain receptors of many mammals, discouraging them from chewing and destroying the seeds. But birds are much less sensitive to capsaicin, and that difference matters. Birds can eat the fruit, carry the seeds away, and deposit them elsewhere, helping the plant spread without suffering the same deterrent. In that way, heat can shape who gets to be a seed courier. It is a selective filter, steering the plant's relationship with animals. Humans, of course, turned this defense into a thrill, breeding peppers for ever higher heat levels and celebrating the challenge. But behind the bravado is an evolutionary story. A plant developed a molecule to protect its future, and we made it into cuisine, sport, and culture. When a chili makes your eyes water, you're feeling a plant strategy, designed to guide seed dispersal by discouraging some mouths while allowing others.
Many everyday spices began as plant defense molecules. A lot of the smells and flavors we love began as warnings. Plants produce aromatic chemicals to repel insects, slow microbial growth, or discourage grazing animals. Those compounds can sting, numb, or overwhelm the senses. And that is often the point. For humans, though, the same chemicals can become delight in small doses. The bite of mustard, the coolness of mint, the sharpness of clove, and the fragrance of many herbs are tied to molecules that evolved to protect plant tissues. Cooking becomes a kind of negotiation. We take defensive chemistry and turn it into comfort, layering it into stews, breads, and teas. This is why spices can feel lively on the tongue. They are not just taste. They are biological signals, powerful enough that tiny amounts can transform a meal. It is also why spices have long been linked with preservation, because some of these compounds can slow spoilage. In a quiet way, your spice rack is a cabinet of plant survival strategies, borrowed and enjoyed.
Some plants mimic stones so perfectly, grazers walk right past. In some dry, exposed landscapes, being noticeable can be fatal. That is where living stones come in. Plants that have evolved to look uncannily like the rocks around them. Instead of tall stems and obvious leaves, they form low, pebble-like bodies that sit almost flush with the ground. Their colors match local gravel, their surface texture resembles weathered stone, and even their shadows blend into the clutter of the desert floor. From a distance, they vanish. This disguise matters because hungry animals often scan for anything green and soft. A plant that looks like a snack gets eaten. A plant that looks like a rock gets ignored. When conditioned to right, these stone mimics still bloom, pushing up a flower that seems to appear from nowhere, like a secret being briefly revealed.
It is one of botany's most delightful paradoxes. The plant survives by pretending not to be alive, proving that camouflage is not only for animals. Certain vines use tendrils like spring-loaded grappling hooks. A tendril can look like a delicate thread, but it behaves like a clever tool. When it touches a support, it curls quickly, wrapping around with a grip that strengthens over time. Then the truly dramatic part begins. Many tendrils coil into tight spirals, storing tension like a stretched spring. This coiling can pull the vine closer to its support, reducing strain and helping the plant climb higher without snapping in wind. Some tendrils can even form a two-part coil with a twist in the middle, which helps balance forces on both ends like a natural shock absorber. The vine is not just hanging on. It is engineering a suspension system. This lets climbing plants reach sunlight without investing in heavy, self-supporting wood. They borrow structure from their surroundings and add their own living hardware. When you see a vine climbing a fence or a tree, it is easy to call it simple. But up close, those curling tendrils are an elegant invention, turning touch into traction and traction into height. Water lilies addressed buoyancy by forming air spaces within their tissues. A water lily exists in a setting where light is above, roots are anchored below, and water fills everything in between. To survive there, it must keep its leaves floating at the surface rather than sinking. It also needs a way to move gases between the air and tissues that remain underwater. The answer is internal airspace, a spongy structural design known as aerenchyma. These air-filled channels function like built-in life rafts, lowering overall density so leaves can rest on the surface while also allowing oxygen to reach parts of the plant buried in low-oxygen mud. The leaves themselves often spread outward, catching sunlight like broad green plates. Their waxy coatings repel water, and their stomata are positioned to operate in open air instead of beneath the surface. When you look at a still pond scattered with lily pads, you are witnessing buoyancy turned into biology. A plant has shaped its own body to float, breathe, and gather light in an environment that would drown most land plants. It is an elegant answer to an aquatic challenge. Pine trees can endure winter by producing natural antifreeze compounds. A pine does not flee winter, it prepares for it. As temperatures drop, many conifers adjust their internal chemistry, producing substances that help protect cells from freezing damage.
This includes sugars and other solutes that lower the freezing point of fluids inside tissues and help stabilize proteins and membranes. Needles also play their part. Their shape reduces surface area.
Their waxy coating limits water loss, and their stomacher are often recessed, sheltered from drying winds. Together, these features help a pine endure months when liquid water is scarce and temperatures swing hard. There is also an energy strategy at work. Rather than dropping all needles each year, many pines keep them, allowing the tree to take advantage of any brief warm spell when photosynthesis becomes possible. Winter survival is not just toughness, it is management. The tree is balancing dehydration, ice risk, and sunlight, using chemistry as protection and architecture as shelter in a snowy landscape. A pine's green is not only beautiful, it is evidence of a carefully planned way to stay alive when the world turns cold. Some flowers change color after pollination to signal already visited. For a flower, attracting visitors is only useful until the job is done.
After pollination, continuing to advertise can waste nectar and time, and it can mislead pollinators who would do better to visit an unpollinated bloom. Some plants solve this by changing color once pollination occurs. A bloom might shift from bright to pale, or from one hue to another, acting like a living sign that says, "Move along." Pollinators learn these cues quickly because following them saves energy. The result is a more efficient partnership with insects or birds, focusing on flowers that still need pollen delivered. The color change can be driven by shifts in pigments, changes in acidity within petals, or altered light-reflecting structures. Whatever the mechanism, it is a message written in color. It also creates a fascinating visual effect where a plant can carry blossoms in multiple colors at once, revealing which have already succeeded. In Botany, even beauty can be information, and information can be a way to conserve precious resources. Plants can build crystals inside cells, sometimes for defense. Inside some plant tissues, you can find tiny crystals carefully formed and stored within cells. These crystals are often made of calcium oxalate and can appear as needles, stars, or grains, depending on the species. Their roles can vary, but one striking possibility is defense. Needle-like crystals can make leaves less appealing to chew, irritating the mouthparts of herbivores, or making plant tissue feel gritty and unpleasant. Crystals can also help a plant manage excess calcium, locking it into a stable form so it does not disrupt cellular balance. It is a reminder that plants are not just soft and green. They can contain mineral structures built with precision, like microscopic sculpture hidden inside living flesh. In some cases, these crystals are so distinctive that botanists use them as clues for identifying plant families. A plant, then, is not only a chemical factory. It can also be a mineral workshop, building tiny internal armor and storage systems without ever leaving its rooted place in the world. A single strawberry is not one fruit, but many tiny fruits together. A strawberry looks like one simple fruit, but it is actually a collection. The red, juicy part is mostly enlarged tissue that supports many tiny individual fruits on its surface. Those little seeds you see on the outside are each an echen, contains a seed. This means the strawberry is a kind of crowded neighborhood where many small fruits share one fleshy stage. It also explains why strawberries have such a distinctive texture and why their surface is dotted rather than smooth. The plant strategy is clever.
By building a large, sweet, attractive structure around many seeds at once, it encourages animals to eat and carry those seeds away. It is efficient packaging, like sending many passengers on a single vehicle. Once you know this, a strawberry becomes even more fascinating to hold. You are not holding one fruit. You are holding a whole cluster of them fused into a single, bright signal to the world that says, "Come taste this and take my future with you." Peanuts flower above ground, then push pods down to ripen underground. A peanut plant begins its reproductive story in the open air, with flowers that appear above ground like you would expect. But after fertilization, it does something astonishing. A structure called a peg grows from the flower and bends downward, drilling into the soil. Once buried, the developing peanut pod matures safely underground. This is called geocarpy, and it offers protection. Underground, the young seeds are buffered from intense heat, drying winds, and many hungry animals that forage on stems and leaves. It also places the next generation right where conditions for sprouting may be best, close to soil moisture and nutrients. The process can look almost like the plant is planting itself, pushing its offspring into the earth with deliberate intent. It is one of those botanical strategies that feels like a clever trick. Yet, it is simply evolution taking advantage of physics and soil. The Panup's journey is a small tale of two worlds, starting in sunlight and finishing in darkness, proving that plants can use the ground not only for roots, but for reproduction itself. Coconuts can float across oceans, carrying a ready-made island starter kit. A coconut is a seed built for travel. Its thick, fibrous husk provides buoyancy and protection, allowing it to float for long distances without the embryo inside being crushed or soaked to death. The hard inner shell is like a vault, keeping the seed's living core safe, while waves and salt test its durability. Inside, there is also food and water in the form of coconut meat and coconut water. A packed supply that helps the young plant begin life when it finally reaches land. When a coconut washes onto a beach and conditions are right, it can sprout and anchor into sand, starting the slow process of turning an empty shoreline into a place with shade, roots, and new habitats. That is why coconuts are so often associated with islands. They are natural colonizers capable of crossing water barriers that stop many other plants. In a single drifting package, the coconut carries shelter, nourishment, and the future tree, as if the ocean itself were the delivery route. Some seeds explode from pods, flinging offspring meters away. In still air and crowded plant communities, waiting for wind or animals can be risky. Some plants solve dispersal with pure mechanics. Their seed pods dry and build tension, and when the moment is right, they split suddenly, snapping open with enough force to launch seeds away from the parent. This can spread offspring into new patches of soil and light, reducing competition and increasing the chances that at least a few land somewhere favorable. The energy comes from the pod structure, layers that shrink at different rates as they dry, creating a twisting force like a wound spring. Then release is instant. A quiet plant becomes a brief catapult. You might not notice it unless you are close, but in a meadow, these tiny launches happen all the time, scattering futures in quick bursts. It is a reminder that plants can be dynamic and dramatic without moving from their rooted spot. They can store energy, aim it, and let it go in a single, sharp moment, sending the next generation outward like a surprise. Quinine from sinker bark changed the fight against malaria.
For centuries, malaria shaped where people could live, travel, and work, especially in warmer regions where the disease was common. Cinchona trees, native to parts of South America, produce a bitter compound in their bark that can help treat malaria infections. Once quinine became known and more widely used, it changed the balance between humans and a disease that had long been terrifyingly powerful. It allowed expeditions, settlements, and medical care to operate in places where malaria had been an overwhelming barrier. The story is also a reminder that plant medicines can have complex histories, including colonial extraction, conflict over resources, and the intense demand for a life-saving treatment. Botanically, it is fascinating because a tree evolved this chemistry for its own survival. Yet it became a turning point in human health. When you hear the word quinine, think of bark and forests, and how a single plant compound can ripple outward into global history and medicine. Plant fibers can become strong textiles, ropes, and even composites.
A plant's strength is often hidden in its fibers, the tough strands that give stems and leaves structure. Humans learn to separate and twist these fibers into thread, then weave thread into cloth, turning plant anatomy into wearable technology. Linen from flax, for example, can be cool and durable. Hemp fibers can be remarkably tough. Jay and seal have long been used for ropes and sacks. What makes plant fibers so impressive is that they are built from cellulose, arranged in ways that resist pulling and tearing. Modern material science has taken this further, using plant fibers in composites, where fibers reinforce another material to create lightweight strength. In a sense, we are borrowing a plant's engineering for our own designs. The next time you see a rope, a canvas bag, or a woven fabric, it can be worth remembering that the raw material once stood in a field, growing its strength in sunlight, using biology to make structure before we ever turned it into tools.
Wood can be engineered into tall buildings that store carbon. Wood is often seen as old-fashioned, but modern engineering has turned it into a higher-performance building material. By layering and bonding timber in specific ways, engineers can create large structural elements with impressive strength and stability. This allows tall buildings made primarily from wood, sometimes with hybrid designs that combine materials for safety and performance. One reason this matters is carbon. Trees draw carbon dioxide from the air and store that carbon in wood. When wood is used in long-lived buildings, much of that carbon remains locked away for decades, sometimes longer. It is not a perfect solution to climate challenges, but it is a fascinating example of using plant-grown material in a modern context. It also changes how we think about cities. A skyline does not have to be only steel and concrete.
It can include structures that began as forests, shaped by careful forestry and careful design. In that way, Bot reaches right into architecture, offering a material that is both ancient and newly reinvented. Algae can fuel blooms that change entire coastlines in days. In the right conditions, algae can multiply at astonishing speed. When warm temperatures, calm waters, and excess nutrients line up, a bloom can appear and spread across bays and shorelines in a matter of days. From above, the water can look painted, tinted green, red, or brown, as if the sea has changed color overnight. Some blooms are mostly harmless, but others can be harmful, producing toxins or consuming oxygen as the algae die and decompose. That oxygen loss can stress fish and other marine life, altering whole coastal ecosystems quickly.
The dramatic pace is what makes blooms so gripping. They are reminders that plant-like organisms can reshape environments on short timescales, not just geological ones.
Algae sit at the base of many aquatic food webs. So when their numbers surge, everything above them feels the shift. A coastline is not only shaped by waves and sand, it can be reshaped by biology, by microscopic growth so vast it becomes visible from space. Seaweed farming can feed people while supporting marine habitats. Seaweeds are fast-growing marine algae that can be cultivated without fresh water, without fertilizers in many settings, and without taking up land. That makes seaweed farming an intriguing kind of agriculture, one that works with ocean currents and sunlight rather than fields and irrigation. Farms can provide food rich in minerals and useful compounds, and seaweeds are used in cuisines around the world, from soups to snacks. Beyond food, seaweed can be processed into ingredients for gels and thickeners used in everyday products. Ecologically, seaweed farms can also create structure in the water, offering shelter for small fish and invertebrates, much like a floating meadow. They can help absorb dissolved nutrients, which may improve local water quality in some cases. The big idea is that ocean farming can be productive without some of the pressures of land farming, though it still requires thoughtful management. Seaweed turns open water into a cultivated landscape, and it suggests a future where part of our food system grows gently beneath the waves. Plants can clean polluted soils by trapping toxins in their tissues. Some plants can act like living filters, pulling substances from soil and storing them in their bodies. This process, often called phytomediation, can help reduce pollution in certain contaminated sites. Different species handle different problems. Some take up heavy metals and concentrate them in leaves or stems. Others can help break down certain organic pollutants through interactions with microbes around their roots. The plant is not doing this as a favor. It is simply surviving, using its normal uptake systems and chemical tools, sometimes in unusual ways. But humans can use that ability intentionally by planting the right species in the right place and then harvesting the biomass to remove the captured contaminants. It is a slow approach compared to digging everything out, but it can be less disruptive and more affordable in some situations. The image is powerful. A patch of green growth turning a poisoned lot into cleaner ground over time. Bot here becomes restoration, using living systems to heal damaged landscapes. Bot is guiding new crops built for hotter, drier futures. As climates shift, agriculture faces new stress, more heat waves, unpredictable rains, and soils that can dry out faster than before. Farm science is responding by searching for traits that help crops hold yields under these pressures. Researchers study drought-tolerant wild relatives, deeper root systems, improved water use efficiency, and heat-resistant flowering. Because a crop that fails to set seed during a heat surge cannot nourish anyone. Breeding can bring useful traits together through careful selection, and modern genetics can sometimes accelerate that work by pinpointing which genes shape resilience. There is also growing attention on overlooked crops that are naturally hardy plants that have quietly sustained people in difficult environments for generations. The aim is not only larger yields, it is reliability, the capacity to produce food consistently when conditions become less forgiving. This is where BOT becomes profoundly practical. Learning how plants handle stress is not just interesting, it is protective. It helps us shape a food future that can bend without breaking. As we reach the close of our journey through BOT, you may notice the world around you feeling a bit more alive. Tonight, we moved through the quiet brilliance of plants, through leaves that transform light into sugar, and roots that find their way through darkness with patience and intent. We encountered flowers that persuade, seeds that wait, and forests that act as living communities, sharing, signaling, and even shaping the air itself. We glimpsed plants that survive fire, salt, flood, and frost, not by fighting the world, but by adapting to it with elegant solutions. We even brushed against the way plants have shaped human lives, feeding civilizations, inspiring medicines, and offering materials that built homes, books, and tools. And now, you do not need to hold any of it tightly. Let the ideas settle like pollen drifting down after a breeze. Let the details soften at the edges, as if dusk is moving in through a garden. Imagine a calm landscape of green, not loud or demanding, just steady. A quiet canopy overhead, cool air near the ground. The gentle sense that life is continuing, even when you rest. If you enjoyed this gentle journey, you're always welcome to like, subscribe, or leave a soft comment. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. And if you're still awake and you'd like to keep wandering, there will be another video waiting for you on the screen, ready for the next slow step into wonder. But for now, allow your body to grow heavy. Unclench your jaw. Let your shoulders drop. Breathe in and out a little slower each time. The plant world will keep turning light into life quietly, faithfully, while you drift off to sleep. Sleep well, and good night.